Yeah, today I would like us to talk about search warrants. You see, my last video, I said that my next video will be talking about search warrants. So if you remember last time, we talked about arrest, general arrest, and how arrest is made. Who can effect arrest and the rights that suspects who are being arrested also have. So today we are going to talk about search warrant. Okay. So this time I would like it. I would like it to be very brief. So without wasting much time, I'm just moving on. Okay. So search in general. Then we look about it. We talk about search warrant and search without warrant. Okay. Yeah. So I would like us to move on. Okay. So the question is, can a police officer conduct a search without warrant? So generally, searches are done with what warrant. Searches are done with warrant. Police do search with what warrant. But the question here is, can a police officer conduct a search without warrant? Okay, so the answer is yes. The police officer can conduct a search without warrant according to section 93 of the Criminal Procedure Act 30, but shall be done upon reasonable cause. Okay, so even though the law allows a police officer to conduct a search without what warrant, but search without warrant shall be conducted upon what reasonable cause. So without reasonable cause, and if you don't have a warrant, a search warrant, and you don't have any reasonable cause, you have no right to what conduct a search. Okay, so that is it. Let's move on. So without a warrant and without a reasonable cause, a police officer has no right to conduct a search without what? One, a reasonable cause. Sorry, without one, a warrant, and without a reasonable cause. A police officer has no right to conduct a search. Okay, so that is it. So um, before a police officer can conduct a search, one, he should have a warrant. Okay, and if he's not having a warrant, there should be a reasonable cause for him to be able to conduct a search. Okay, all right. So let's move on. Article 14, Clause 2 of the 1992 Constitution also provides that a person who is arrested, restricted, or detained shall be informed immediately in a language that he understands of the reasons of his arrest, restriction, or detention. Okay, so this is what the Constitution also says under Article 14, Clause 2. Okay, that a person who is arrested, restricted, or detained shall be informed immediately in a language that he understands the reasons for his arrest, restriction, or what? Detention. Okay, so in conducting searches, it's a form of what? Restriction. Because let's say if you're on the road and the police stops you, a police officer stops you to conduct a search on you, he's going to restrict you, he's going to restrict your movement. So that is a form of restriction. Okay, and that is what the article 14 plus 2 is talking about. So that arrest, that is when you are being arrested. Okay, you should be informed immediately the cause or the reason for your arrest. And same way, if you are being restricted, and as I said, um, searches, conducting searches is a form of restriction. So that's why I said, if a police officer stops you on the road, maybe you are driving, a police officer stops you to conduct a search on you, it's restricting your movement. Okay, so that is what the law says. So in that instance, even though the police officer has every right to conduct search, and as I said, there should be at a reasonable cause or with warrant. If there's no warrant, there should be a reasonable cause. And even after, aside the reasonable cause and even with warrant, you have the right to be informed immediately the reason why you are being arrested or restricted. So if they're conducting a search on you, they have to explain to you, they have to give you the reason why they are going to conduct that search on you. And that search that they are going to conduct, the reason must be should be of reasonable what cause, reasonable grounds. It shouldn't be any on reasonable, what do you call it, ground. It should be on reasonable grounds. Okay, so that's what our constitution also talks about. So let's move on. So if a police officer stops you on the road to conduct a search on you without a warrant or without a reasonable cause, and do not inform you immediately the reasons for your restriction, that would be a violation of your human rights, okay, as provided for under Article 21, Clause 1, Paragraph G of the 1992 Constitution. Okay. So when the police stops you on the road to conduct a search on you, and the police is not having a warrant and it's not having any reasonable cause to do so, and it's not informing you about the reason of that restriction or that arrest. Now you are talking about search warrant. So if you are not informed about the reason of that restriction, okay, that would be a violation of your human right, okay, and as provided for under Article 21 plus 1G of the 1992 Constitution, okay. So now let's look at what the Constitution says under Article 21 plus 1G of the 1990. Let's look at what that article talks about. Okay, so Article 21 1G of the 1990 Constitution provides that all persons shall have the right to freedom of movement, which means the person, uh, which means the right to move freely in Ghana, the right to leave and enter Ghana, and immunity from expulsion from Ghana. Okay, so when you are restricted in such a manner, unlawful restriction is a violation of your human rights. Okay, it's a violation of your human rights, and that is under freedom of movement, your right to freedom of movement. Every Ghanaian, every citizen in Ghana has the right to what freedom of movement without any restriction or any um, any form of prevention, anything preventing you from what moving. Okay, so that is what the Constitution says. Okay, but if you are going to be restricted, it should be in accordance with the law. Okay, so that's how come when COVID-19 came about, we were restricted. Okay, in that case, the president issued what executive instrument, and that is the reasonable cause we are talking about. You see the reasonable cause. The president couldn't have at that time. They couldn't have just restricted people without any what cause or reasons for doing so, and the reasons were clear. We were in a pandemic, and the president also backed it with what law. So when these restrictions, there's no absolute freedom in Ghana in any way. Freedoms are subject to um, um, what do you call it? It's not absolute. Okay, it's not absolute. They are subject to laws. Okay, so when there should be any restriction of your movement, there should be a law or a reasonable cause to do so, and that is how come during the pandemic it was clear. There was an executive instrument to back that action. So that is the reasonable cause. Okay. So all of us, we have the right to what? Freedom of movement. Okay. So that is what the Constitution says. Okay. So now let's look at the search warrant. When a search warrant, I'm talking about search with warrant. When a search warrant to be issued and executed. So let's say if you're on the road and the police stops you, okay, to search you, you have every right to ask the police whether he's having a warrant. Okay. If he is having a warrant, then we are going to look at when is warrant to be issued and executed. We will come to that. But if the police is not having a warrant, then there should be a reasonable cause. So you have every right to ask the police officer, why am I being searched? Okay, you have every right to ask, because the law says in such circumstances, those restrictions must come with what? Either a reasonable cause or with what? Warrant. So if you are not having a warrant, there should be a reasonable cause. And you need to be informed immediately the reasons for your restriction. So you have every right. So you can ask the police, are you having a warrant to search me? If he's not having, then the law also allows them to search without warrant. So you have, and under that circumstance, you need to know, it should be of what reasonable cause, and you also need to be informed of the reason of you being what restricted. So you can ask, you have every right to ask. If the police not having a warrant, you have every right to ask whether there is what a reasonable cause and the reason for that restriction. So you have every right to do so. Okay, so now let's look at what the law says about the time or when search warrants are to be issued and executed. Okay, so search warrants are to be what issued and executed on a Sunday and shall be executed between 6:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. Okay, but the court may authorize to be executed at any hour. So this is what the law says. It says that search warrants are supposed to be what issued and executed on Sundays. So if the police officer sees you and is having a warrant, you have to look at when the warrant was issued. If it's Sunday, then that warrant is what valid. And that very day that is executing it, if it's also Sunday, is valid. And the time, there should be within some time, 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. So if the police sees you, let's say 7 o'clock p.m., and he's having a warrant to search you, that warrant is not what valid, it's invalid. Okay, so that is what the law says. And this can be found under section 89 of the Criminal Procedure Act 30. Okay, so if you go into the law at section 89, you see it there. Okay, so that is the search warrant, the time and when it's supposed to be what issued and executed. So let's talk about search without warrant. Where can it be found? Okay, so as I said earlier, section 93 of the Criminal Procedure Act 30 also talks about search without warrant. Okay, and I don't know, let's see if you can look at what that section says. After that, then we'll end it here. So section 99, section 93 says, whenever a police officer has a reasonable cause to believe that any article which has been stolen or otherwise unlawfully obtained, or in respect of which a criminal offense is being, or is about to be committed, is being conveyed, or is concealed or carried on any person in a public place, or is concealed or contained in any package in a public place for the purpose of being conveyed, then and in any such case, if the police officer considers that the special exigencies of the case so require, he may, without a warrant or other written authority, apprehend, seize, and search any such person, package, or article, and may thereupon take possession of and detain such article together with the package, if any, containing it, and may also arrest any person conveying, concealing, or carrying the same as aforesaid. Okay, so this is what the law says under section 93. This is the section that gives the authority to police officers to search without what warrant. Okay, so I think that will be all. Okay, that will be all. So this is all about search warrant. There are a lot to talk about, but I want to limit my time to 15 minutes. I want to shorten the video to 15 minutes. So I would like you to follow me on my what do you call it, YouTube channel. Okay, Legal Studies TV. With Eric Frimpong attached to it, into bracket Eric Frimpong attached to it. Also, you can watch my videos on Facebook and on Instagram. Okay. So I thank you very much. Next time you talk about another interesting topic. Okay. So the next video is going to be very, very interesting. Okay. So let's keep subscribing to the channel and watching the videos. Thank you very much. Bye bye.